Hi you guys, what is going on, and welcome back to the channel. So this is a video that you guys have been asking me for quite some time, and to be honest, I just haven't had the opportunity to make it up until now. So I'm gonna walk you through the whole process of how to install coilovers, how to set them up properly, how to figure out your ride height, and kind of how to dial in your suspension settings for what your application is. Now keep in mind, as we go through this, your car, this can be applied to any car in general, it's not just Subaru specific for this one, but keep in mind, going through this, your suspension settings will be different than mine. They will be different from Matt's over there as he changes his oil. They will be different from literally everybody's out there because it's going to be set up for how you want the car. So for us, we are using my 2017 STI, for example, on this video. We have stock suspension on there now. We've already got wheels and tires, so we're going to be making those wheels and tires fit to the car. The specs that I have on the wheels are 18 by 9.5 plus 30 with a 275 35 18 tire on there. So we have a lot of meat to tuck under these fenders, but we don't completely want to kill our contact patch by just cambering them completely out if we can avoid that. So let me show you the coilovers we're working with, and then let's get started here. So for us, I picked these up yesterday. This is a second-hand set of Fortune Auto Cygnus Performance coilovers. These have their Hyperco springs on them already. It's a very low mileage set that I'm thankful that we were able to snag for the car. Now with all of your coilovers, whether they're brand new, you should be getting a set of spanner wrenches with them. These are for the locking collars on both of the coilovers, top and bottom. Depending on the quality of the coilover you get, they may come with the Allen keys needed. For us, this larger Allen key is actually to lock the coilover collar in place, and this little one is for the dampening adjustment knobs that sit on the top of the coilover right there. Now before you even go just throwing these in the car, what we need to go through here and do first is set up the preload on all of the coilovers. So a big mistake that I see a lot of people do on coilovers is they'll try to adjust the height of the coilover from this top coil, or this top collar here. This top collar adjusts the preload of the spring tension that's already on here. You don't want to be adjusting that one. For us, the preload is already set up on all of these, but so now that I've got these things all cleaned up, there's anti-seize in these lower collars here to prevent them from binding up over time. We're gonna go ahead and preset height on these. So all I'm gonna do is match the distance between the top collar and the bottom collar here for the tops. We're gonna do the same thing with the bottom. I guarantee you we're gonna have to adjust these after they get on the car. However, this will give us a baseline for just where they need to be. So first we'll take our measurement between the two collars. Like I said, if you don't have a set of calipers, I'll link these below. Like, calipers come in handy for so many things when you're doing things around the garage for precise measurements. A set of measuring tapes will work just fine, but right now we have 1.9920 on this one, 2.040. So we're pretty close on both of them. I think we'll just set them both to 2 inches to start with and then go from there. 2 inches right there. So now I'm just gonna bring this guy around and lock it down. Apparently right there. So that works. So we've got our first one set up at 2 inches there. I'm not gonna tighten these down yet until we get height 100% set in the car. This one I can bring down a little bit since we were just past 2 inches, so I'll just bring it one rotation around, bring the collar down a little bit. We're at 2.02, so I could probably bring this around one more time. 2 on the dot, so bring that guy around. So now we have both of our fronts set up. So there's actually a handful of mistakes that I see people make when they go to install coilovers in the car, and one of those is, and like struts and springs also, one of those is they don't jack the car up evenly. If you're doing one side in the front, make sure you have the other front side lifted up also. The sway bar is going to put so much tension on the actual knuckles of where they're bolted up that it's going to try to like pull it, and you're going to fight with it the entire time of trying to get everything lined back up. So if you have 2 jack stands, do the front first, then do the rear. If you afford, just put it all up at the same time. For us, we have the quick jack, so it makes our life a lot easier. We can just come over here, push this button, and our car goes up in the air. Which the quick jacks just make life easy doing this. So we're just gonna go up to the first notch on it, and then lock it down just to go down. And the car is now locked in place. So we'll start off by getting off this front wheel, the other front wheel, and then start getting the struts out. Alright, so now we're ready to start taking this strut out. This is only held in by 5 bolts total. You've got 2 on the lower knuckle, you've got 3 up top, and then just a couple of wires and whatnot. So we're gonna start by taking off our ABS sensor, which is on the left side or the front side, frontmost side. Pops right off. On the other side, we have our brake line, which is going to be a 12 millimeter. Which it looks like I've cross-threaded in the past, which I've definitely cross-threaded in the past. And then from there we can start getting these out. Now this is why I say jack up the fronts at the same time. Down behind the knuckle you've got your sway bar, and that's gonna keep tension on both of the front struts and the knuckles. So if you only have one side jacked up, it's gonna put so much tension on it where you're gonna be fighting with this strut assembly to try to get it out. So we're just gonna break free the lower 19s first. Now that both of those are broken free, I can come down here, hit it with my impact, and pop both of these bolts right out. That guy should slide right out. That's our camber adjustment. So you'll see the top one is a camber adjustment. It's got like an oblong bolt head to it, an oblong shaft. This bottom one I'm just gonna get off by hand and then knock the bolt out. And then after I knock that bolt out, you're gonna see this whole knuckle assembly start to like sway towards the ground. Don't worry, totally normal. It's not gonna damage anything. Tap that guy out a little bit. And then if you want, you can pick up on this and it might make it a little bit easier to get that bolt out. Set that guy down, and then you can slide this knuckle assembly out of the strut and just kind of let it sit right there. Now we're gonna jump up top and get the 3 12s that hold this guy up to the strut tower. So right up here on the strut tower, you're gonna see 3 bolts. Sometimes it could be 2, depending on what car you have. It's either gonna be 2, 3, or 4. That's mainly what I see on these. So we're gonna loosen all of these, and then as we go to take out the last nut, I'm just gonna walk the bottom of the strut out with my hand. If you have a second person to help you and you want the help, it'll definitely make your life a little easier. All right, now for the fun part of fanoodling this strut out. Because the stock ones are so fucking big. Who would Subaru thought that? Oh God. All right, one out. Maybe because it's been a while, Matt. It's been a while. Come on, you salty bitch. There we go. Oh, dude, I just totaled my fender. So now we can go ahead and rotate this guy right where we need it. I'm gonna grab the floor jack to jack up this hub, get it lined up into the coilover, get the bolts back in. We'll do the same thing on the other side. And then we can start, then we get the rears in and then start adjusting. So this will be fun.
It take hours, so I'm gonna try and find a way to jump it. I'm gonna test and see if we get it.
When you guys do this, a floor jack is probably gonna be your best bet to get these holes lined back up. They make life a lot easier. It can be a real pain in the pooper, but I promise, it makes life easier. And we'll go get the other side in. Now remember how I said this top bolt was oblong for camber? We are gonna come back and adjust this here in a minute. I'm not gonna stress that quite yet up until we get the other coilover on, just to keep the axles up and in line with the transmission, because the last thing that we want is that thing to pop out and start leaking gear oil. So let's jump over to the other side. Before we jump to the rears, this is what I was talking about, the orientation. So you're gonna want the top hat to actually sit perpendicular, not parallel, perpendicular to the car. So that way they're pointing in. So that way when you go to adjust camber, it actually adjusts camber. I have seen people set these up where they are offset a little bit. They do that to adjust caster, but 9 times out of 10, whenever I see people with messed up top hats, they just don't know. So just keep that in mind. They go perpendicular to the car, so pointing inwards, not pointing at a weird angle. So now that we've got the fronts on there, we're not done with them yet. We gotta wait till we get the car back on the ground to make all of our adjustments. It's time to jump on the rears to get the rears in. Now the rears install a little bit differently. For most cars, this is probably the setup you're going to see, and this is gonna follow the same principle as the front of the car with your sway bar. You're gonna want both of the rears jacked up at the same time. Now there is no correct or incorrect orientation for the rears for camber plates unless you have them. Older GD Subarus have them. They're an option, but for the most part, this is what you're gonna be looking at. So what we need to do is come down here. We're going to disconnect our lower control arm from the knuckle here, from the strut there, from the end link, and then we are going to come back up to the top, go into our trunk. Now my trunk is obviously going to look different than yours because I have the battery back here and everything's been stripped. But for the most part, the bolts for your strut will be right under your little trim panel right back there, probably under the carpet. So there's only going to be 2 of them that hold in the rears. Now there's only going to be 2 in the rear that hold things up, and it's going to be those top 2 right there. That top knob, if you're curious, is the dampening adjustment knob. We'll get into that here in a little bit, but let's go ahead and get these guys installed. One side note with the rears, for the most part, they'll probably come with some bushing inserts like this. You just slide them into the lower collar like so when you go to install it. So let's get the old ones out first. So the way we're gonna do this is we're gonna drop both of the lower control arms first and then take the struts out, just because I'm gonna have somebody come out and help me pull the struts out just to make life a little bit easier. So if we come in here, we can get on that end link. Your end links are probably gonna be the most frustrating thing to put back in because they can be a major pain in the ass. Next up, we'll do the strut. If you ever have a bolt that gets stuck like this, what you can do is take your impact and slowly start to walk it out while unscrewing, and it'll pop out like that. Well, let go. Let go. There we go. Jeez, didn't want to come out. Now with all those bolts out, you should be able to just pull down the lower control arm like that. And then our strut is ready to come out. With the rears, you don't have to worry so much about the axle because you have a lot more mounting points for the hub. The fronts are really what you got to worry about. So let's go jump to the other side and get that side out. Then we can start getting in our new stuff. So I've got the rear struts put in. I've got all the tires put back on. I had to make some adjustments to my toe to be able to get it back somewhat straight because it was wildly off because I adjusted camber while I was down there also, just to try to make things fit I have a lot of camber, holy fuck. Just to make things fit a little bit better for when we set the car down. I have fully adjustable suspension. I'll show you guys that here in a little bit. It definitely helps. Like, I have lower control arms, I have toe arms, I have all that stuff to be able to adjust my suspension as need be, but let's get this thing on the ground, see what it looks like, and then we can start figuring out how we want to set up our suspension, whether we want to lower it, add camber, remove camber, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think you guys can see it from here. I added as much camber as I could just to try to fit those tires under the fender so that way we're not rubbing all the time. These 275s are a little bit difficult to fit, but I think we'll be able to squeeze them under the fender. We'll find out. My rear fenders are rolled and pulled, so we'll see what we can make happen with those. The fronts, I have a feeling we're gonna have to add a hair of camber to also, which we have a little bit more adjustability out of the top. So let's get this thing on the ground and see what it looks like. Very curious to see what it'll look like. And what we gotta do next with suspension. Okay, well I can already tell you we're gonna have to raise it a little. Actually, no, we might actually be good in the front. It actually might be good right there. What about the rear? The rear has a whole lot of camber to it. But dude, holy shit, 275s fit. I think the amount of camber I have in the rear is perfect. I think in the front we'll add a hair more. We're definitely gonna, I honestly think I can go just a hair lower in the front. So to be honest, I think I'm pretty happy with the fronts. I don't think we need to change the fronts at all, except for just tightening everything down. Like, we have good clearance between the wheel and the fender. We are not even close to maxed out on camber here. We still have more adjustability if we really wanted to. Ride height, I feel like this is perfect, absolutely perfect for the front. Like, I don't think that could get any better than what it is. Now the rears, on the other hand, we're a little bit too tilty back here, as you guys can see, so I'm gonna pull some camber out of the rear, and I'm also gonna raise the car up a little bit. So I'll show you guys how to do that. Adjusting camber for you guys if you don't have adjustable lower control arms is going to be a little bit different. I can't really show you on mine because I don't really have the adjustability anymore. I can definitely show you how to do it with aftermarket arms. So get this guy back up in the air. Let's get the rear wheels off. We'll pull out a little bit of camber. We'll raise it up probably about, I don't know, about ½ an inch. And then we should be good on like ride height. Like, this is perfect. Well, not the rears, but the fronts are like perfect up there. Oh. So before we adjust camber, let's first adjust height. So I'm gonna come in here, take this measurement to start with, because I don't remember what we were at before. So we're at 1.5. So let's try going to 1.8. So we're gonna bump it up a little bit. Sometimes you can do this by hand, which because I just lubed all this up, I can do it by hand. So you can just spin the whole coilover assembly. So you'll see that the whole assembly is dropping at this point. We'll bring that color back down, and 1.9. So that is good for where I want that. Now I'm gonna adjust the camber of this. So camber is gonna be down here on this lower control arm, right here on the bottom. If you have adjustable control arms, that's where you're gonna adjust it from. So I'm just gonna maybe pull out a couple degrees of camber. I may need to adjust my toe again, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. So I'm just gonna bring it in by half, kind of see where that puts us. And before I start adjusting the other side, I'm gonna put this side back on the ground just to kind of see how we're looking here. Tighten that guy back down. So I pulled out a couple degrees of camber, cambered it in a little bit, adjusted height. Yeah, we'll get this side back on, see how we're looking, get it back on the ground. And then if this looks good, we can just copy this over to the other side, move up to the front, take the front wheels off, get the collars tightened down onto the actual body, and then we're pretty much good to go. Yo, much better. I can definitely tow it in more, but I'm pretty happy with that amount of camber right there. So I'm gonna keep adjusting toe on this. Actually that's pretty good right there. So pretty happy with this. We have good clearance. I'm gonna go ahead, get everything tight on this side, match the other side, and then we can tighten up the front and pretty much have coilovers installed. So I actually went through and I lowered the rear one more time just to be a little bit happier with this. So now that our rear suspension is set up, it's time to jump to the fronts. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Remember when I said there was those eccentric bolts down on the control arms? Now we need to adjust those. If you look at this side, we have way more camber on this side than we do on this side. So to fix that, we just need to rotate that lower eccentric bolt to get it to where it matches this side. The top hats are both the same. You don't want to compensate your camber with your top hats if your lower control arm bolts are just, it's as easy as just turning them, I promise. So let's get this thing back up in the air again. Let's get the front. Oh, we just need to adjust this front one. I'm pretty happy with the height right now. So we'll get that camber fixed, lock down all of the collars, and then we got our suspension all set up, except for the alignment, which I'll do later. All right, so because I'm happy with the height, the first thing I'm gonna go ahead and do is lock these coilovers in place. I'm just gonna come up here with our punch and lock it down. Now that guy ain't going anywhere, so now I need to adjust the camber on this side. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this guy loose. I need to loosen the bottom also. Because see, you can move this bolt to get this where you want it. So I don't want any camber on this, so I'm just gonna pull it straight down and out like that and tighten everything down, and that will fix that camber issue. Super easy. Now I can get this wheel back on, and then we only have our camber adjusted from up top on the actual top hat versus adjusting it down here on the strut. Like I said, when you go to get your car aligned, they'll do most of this for you, but just try to ballpark it if you can, so that way if you are driving to the alignment shop, it's not totally fucked. I'm gonna go lock down the other side of the coilover. We'll push this thing out of the garage. We'll take a look at it, see how she looks. Honestly, very happy with the result on them. Like the fronts, we got really lucky and we got like super perfect on the fronts on the first go, which almost never happens. The rears, I'm still adjusting the rears. I think I'm gonna go a little bit lower in the rear just to kill that wheel gap a little bit more, but overall, huge upgrade over stock suspension, you guys. To answer a couple questions that I get a lot, what should you set your ride height to? That's totally up to you. Typically, if you're new to coilovers, it's your first time doing it, about 3/4 of an inch to about 1.25 inches is a pretty good wheel gap for your first time, and you can adjust from there. For the dampening knobs on top of all of the coilovers, what I normally do is, it's normally a 32-way adjustable. I normally go right in the middle at about 16 and then adjust from there. If I feel like the ride quality is too harsh, I'll make them a little bit softer. If I feel like the ride quality is too soft, make them a little bit harder. You're gonna have to play with it a little bit to get your settings right, but starting right in the middle of whatever adjustability you have is a really good starting point. So if it's 32-way, go 16, go all the way to soft or all the way to hard, then count 16 clicks to the middle, and that should be your starting point. But aside from that, remember, don't adjust your height off of your preload collar. That's not what that's there for. Adjust it off of the lower collar and screw it into the shock body. If you're buying a secondhand set of coilovers like I did, go through there, clean them, take the time to put anti-seize on the threads. You're gonna thank yourself later, I promise. But aside from that, it's pretty straightforward installing coilovers on your car. Big one for you guys is gonna go get an alignment. That's gonna be the biggest factor, which will kill your tires if you don't go get one. So that's all I got for you guys on this one. I hope it answers your questions. I hope it helps. I'll link below the control arms and the toe arms if you have a Subaru. They definitely help get your toe and everything dialed in. If not, good luck on finding your parts for your own car. I don't know what you drive, but hopefully this video has helped you. So with that, if you guys like the video, you know what to do. Go ahead and hit that like button, turn it black, blue, green, yellow, purple, silver, cyan, whatever color it turns for you. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you want to be one of these corners, no idea which one I'll put it in quite yet, but with that, I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, homies.